Carol Burnett names the 5 most evil people in Hollywood. For nearly 5 decades, Carol Burnett has been America's comedic sweetheart. The red-haired wonder whose infectious laugh, remarkable talent, and genuine warmth made her a television legend. Her groundbreaking variety program, The Carol Burnett Show, ran for 11 seasons and earned 25 Emmy Awards, cementing her place in entertainment history. But behind that radiant smile and legendary ear tug lies a woman who has navigated the treacherous waters of Hollywood with remarkable resilience. Over the course of her illustrious career, Burnett has come across people whose actions exposed the less respectable aspects of entertainment. People who have done things to her that vary from being painful on a personal level to being disastrous on a professional one. Carol is America's darling, but she's no pushover, stated a former CBS executive who worked closely with Burnett during her variety show's prime. She has an incredible memory, not just for comedy sketches, but for how people treated her along the way. When money or power was at stake, she mentally notes who betrayed their true selves. According to those closest to her, Burnett has privately maintained a list of entertainment figures whose actions earned her lasting contempt. People whose actions, in her opinion, were not only disappointing but actually malicious. Private discussions and sporadic unguarded moments have exposed the names that would top her personal Hollywood blacklist, despite the fact that her public persona has always placed an emphasis on grace and optimism. Tonight, we unveil the 5 people Carol Burnett reportedly views as the most problematic people she has come into contact with during her remarkable career. People whose private behavior showed a very different side from their well-cultivated public personas. Now, let's explore the 5 names that reportedly earned Carol Burnett's deepest disapproval. Individuals whose conduct she regarded actually unethical or cruel, showing a darkness underneath their carefully polished public personas. 1. Joe Hamilton, the husband who stole her work. Carol Burnett and Joe Hamilton appeared to be the ideal match in terms of both personal and professional compatibility when they were married in 1963. Producer and music director Hamilton knew the entertainment business inside and out, having collaborated with Burnett on The Gary Moore Show. As producer of The Carol Burnett Show, he appeared to be her most devoted champion, the behind-the-scenes partner who helped bring her creative vision to life. They were television's power couple before anyone used that word, recalls a longtime CBS executive who worked closely with both. Joe was technically knowledgeable about production. Carol had the creative genius and star power. They appeared to be invincible together. For nearly 2 decades, their marriage appeared to represent that rare Hollywood success story. A couple who could collaborate professionally while maintaining a strong personal relationship. They raised 3 daughters together and built what seemed from the outside to be an ideal family life alongside their television empire. As Burnett would learn, the truth was much more unsettling. Secretly formed Hamilton Productions and claimed ownership of spin-offs like Mama's Family revealed a former business affairs officer at CBS who had access to the contractual arrangements. While presenting himself as Carol's partner in every sense, Joe was quietly establishing separate corporate entities designed to control aspects of her creative output. Their divorce procedures in 1984 were the first to reveal the full scope of Hamilton's machinations. Court documents revealed that Hamilton had methodically positioned himself to claim ownership rights to intellectual property developed during The Carol Burnett Show, including characters created and portrayed by Burnett herself. The Mama's Family situation was particularly shocking, explained an entertainment attorney familiar with the case. The character of Mama, played by Vicki Lawrence, originated in the family sketches on Burnett's show. These were some of the most beloved segments, largely created through Burnett's collaborative process with her cast. Yet, Hamilton had organized things so that when Mama's Family was split out as a distinct series, his corporation kept major ownership and influence. Beyond these professional manipulations, Hamilton allegedly engaged in personal betrayals that compounded Burnett's sense of having been fundamentally deceived throughout their marriage. "It's business, not emotion," a former accountant who worked with the couple recalled, after hiding assets and cheating. Everyone in the room was surprised by his callousness when Carol confronted him about using their marriage to manage her employment. It was as if the mask had finally dropped, revealing a calculating businessman who had been playing a role for 18 years. After divorcing Hamilton, Burnett fought a long court struggle to get back what she believed was hers. Not only her monetary resources, but also the imaginative personas and ideas she had cultivated over the course of her career. The process was both emotionally devastating and professionally challenging, requiring her to fight for ownership of her own artistic legacy. What genuinely saddened Carol wasn't the dissolution of her marriage, explained a lifelong friend who remained by Burnett during this tough moment. It was the realization that someone she had trusted completely, who had shared her bed, raised children with her, and been privy to her most vulnerable moments, had been calculating how to profit from her talent the entire time. That amount of deliberate betrayal struck her as profoundly terrible beyond usual human faults. For Burnett, whose own upbringing had been plagued by adult treachery, Hamilton's actions were an especially bitter recurrence of familiar themes. Trust exploited, vulnerability weaponized, and love shown as manipulation. The experience reportedly left her with a lasting weariness about combining business and personal relationships. Joe wasn't just her husband, stated a former cast member from the show. He was the person who was meant to be defending her interests while she focused on the creative parts. Finding that he had been quietly building up systems to control and profit from her work was like learning your security guard had been moonlighting as a burglar. Why he's on the list? Backstabbing betrayal at both the professional and personal level. A man who meticulously sought to dominate her creative legacy while maintaining the facade of a loving husband for nearly 2 decades. But hold on till you learn about the legendary comedian who made fun of her in front of the whole group. I believed I didn't handle anything. Yes, didn't he? He had me, I would have had 2 Harvey Kormans, the friend who betrayed her for 10 years. One of the cornerstones of Carol Burnett's revolutionary variety show was Harvey Korman. His renowned incapacity to maintain a straight face during sketches, along with his flawless timing and adaptable character acting, produced some of the most unforgettable comedy moments on television. To millions of viewers, Korman and Burnett seemed to share a special chemistry that reflected genuine friendship and mutual respect. Behind the scenes, they did have a close and cooperative relationship until a shocking incident allegedly turned everything upside down and cemented Korman's place on Burnett's list of major letdowns. Once her most trusted co-star on The Carol Burnett Show, noted a former director who worked on the program for several seasons. They seemed to be inseparable both on and off screen, working together to bring out the best in each other's creativity and clearly enjoying each other's company. Beyond the cameras, Burnett and Korman had a close working connection, frequently interacting and helping one another through both personal and professional difficulties. Burnett had stuck by Korman through difficult circumstances and had been essential in creating his reputation as a television star. According to a previous show writer, Carol was always Harvey's biggest supporter. She fought for his salary increases, gave him opportunities to direct, and made sure he received proper recognition for his contributions. Harvey appeared to be the brother she never had, and she treated the cast as if they were family. For those who witnessed it, this background made the subsequent events much more startling. Several members of the production team claimed that as Korman's ego seemingly grew with his notoriety, the relationship drastically deteriorated over the show's later seasons. What had been occasional moments of creative tension or normal professional disagreements allegedly evolved into something far more troubling. Verbally exploded on set, openly insulted the crew, and made a direct jab at Carol, according to a stage manager who saw the incident, which was said to be the last time they worked together. Not only was it unprofessional, but it was purposefully degrading, taking place at a major sketch rehearsal in front of the whole cast and production crew. Insiders characterize Korman's outburst as a deliberate attempt to weaken Burnett's authority and minimize her contributions to the show's success, though accounts differ slightly regarding the specifics of the incident. Those who witnessed the incident claim that Korman questioned Burnett's creative choices, rejected her suggestions, and implied that the show's success was due to her leadership rather than her. He essentially wanted to orchestrate a coup, explained a camera operator who was on site that day. It felt like he'd been building resentment for years and finally decided to make a power play. But he miscalculated badly. He was unaware of how much everyone else on that set loved Carol. The betrayal was especially painful because it was public, a conscious decision to make Burnett feel as embarrassed as possible by confronting her in front of the team instead of privately voicing her concerns. This public humiliation aspect apparently struck Burnett as showing Korman's actual character and ambitions. Despite their close relationship, she dismissed him right away, according to a former production assistant who saw the fallout. It's the fastest and most decisive decision I've ever seen Carol make. She didn't make a scene or shout. She just remarked, "I think we're done here." Walked calmly to her office and directed her producer to make arrangements for Corman's departure. Officially characterized as a cordial departure as Corman sought other opportunities, the public narrative surrounding his departure from the show was meticulously crafted to protect both of their reputations. The expression on Burnett's face as she processed the betrayal of someone she had thought of as family is said to have stuck in the memories of those who witnessed it that day. A guest star who happened to be practicing that day remembered, "It was like watching someone get stabbed and realizing who was holding the knife. There was this moment of amazement, then pain, then this quiet dignity as she took the decision to cut him loose. She realized that permitting such behavior would ruin everything they had worked so hard to achieve." According to reports, the episode had a long-lasting effect on Burnett's perception of not only Corman but the whole creative partnership dynamic. While she continued to foster a positive environment and maintained close relationships with other cast members, particularly Vicki Lawrence and Tim Conway, colleagues noticed a new reserve in how she managed professional relationships. According to a close friend, Carol underwent a transformation following the Corman event. Not in a negative sense, but in the way she closely examined how people behaved under duress. She became more attentive to small signs of ego or entitlement. Maybe she had overlooked the warning signs with Harvey. Why he's on the list. Ego-driven sabotage disguised as frustration. After years of supporting his career, the betrayal of a valued friendship in a public place intended to cause the greatest amount of harm to her authority and reputation. The next person on her list exceeded all boundaries with an inappropriate late-night call. Around the other direction all the way around. 3. Brando, Marlon. The charmer who went too far. Before establishing his legendary status with The Godfather, Marlon Brando transformed acting with his unvarnished, naturalistic performances in movies like A Streetcar Named Desire and On the Waterfront. He surpassed almost every other Hollywood actor in terms of power and mystique by the 1970s. According to individuals close to Burnett, this power supposedly led to a distressing interaction that exposed Brando's darker, predatory side. At 3 a.m., Burnett was called. Praised her, then got creepy and inappropriate, revealed a longtime friend in whom Burnett had confided about the incident. What started as seemingly benign adoration gradually turned into terrain that made her profoundly uncomfortable. According to reports, the incident happened in the middle of the 1970s, when Burnett and Brando were both at pivotal junctures in their careers. Burnett's variety show was a television institution while Brando was undergoing a career revival following The Godfather and Last Tango in Paris. Their paths had crossed at industry events, but they weren't close friends or regular associates. According to those familiar with the situation, Brando's late-night call began professionally enough, expressing admiration for Burnett's comedic talents and suggesting they might work together on a project. However, it is said that Brando started making more explicit suggestions and personal remarks, which caused the conversation to become awkward. The conversation began with praise for her performances, progressed to remarks on her looks, and ended with overt sexual suggestions. Cited a former assistant who was one of the select few to whom Burnett disclosed the call. Carol made multiple attempts to refocus the discussion on work-related topics. But Brando was persistent and increasingly explicit. This behavior placed Burnett in an impossible position. As a woman in entertainment during an era when female performers had limited power, rejecting or criticizing someone of Brando's stature carried significant professional risk. Yet the topic of the call was reportedly so incorrect that maintaining a courteous response grew increasingly impossible. The assistant remembered that she made multiple attempts to discontinue the call in a courteous manner. But Brando kept talking, becoming more specific and pressing. It wasn't only improper, it felt predatory, taking advantage of both his status and the lonely aspect of a late-night phone conversation. If not for what transpired next, the episode may have remained a private, uncomfortable memory. Burnett was further humiliated when the call specifics were somehow made public by Hollywood gossip outlets. Instead of offering an apology or remaining discreet, Brando allegedly brushed the whole incident aside in a manner that solidified his position as one of Burnett's truly unsettling figures. According to a former publicist with knowledge of the fallout, Mia turned it into a circus. The tale was taken up by gossip columnists, who trivialized what had actually been a frightening boundary violation by portraying it as Brando making a run at Burnett. When asked about it at a press appearance, Brando answered with contemptuous condescension. According to multiple sources, when a reporter questioned Brando about the alleged inappropriate call, he reportedly said, "Carol takes things too seriously. Some women don't understand the difference between appreciation and harassment." This public statement essentially blamed Burnett for being uncomfortable with his behavior, characterizing her reaction as oversensitivity rather than a reasonable response to unprofessional conduct. "That response showed exactly who he was," said a former CBS executive who worked with Burnett at the time. "He used his power and reputation to not just cross boundaries, but to then shame her for having boundaries at all. It was textbook powerful man behavior. Act inappropriately, then make the woman feel crazy for objecting." This dismissive response, suggesting that Burnett was overreacting to what Brando considered harmless flirtation, reflected a callousness that reportedly troubled her deeply. It wasn't just the initial boundary violation, but the complete lack of accountability afterward that earned Brando a permanent place on her list of Hollywood figures whose true character disturbed her. "Carol has always been a professional who separates personal and professional interaction," explained a longtime colleague. What bothered her most about the Brando situation wasn't just the inappropriate call. It was his public dismissal of her discomfort. The way he weaponized his status to make her seem prudish or unreasonable for objecting to being sexually propositioned out of nowhere at 3 a.m. The incident reportedly affected how Burnett approached interactions with certain powerful male figures in entertainment, creating a weariness that hadn't existed before. While she continued to work with male colleagues without incident, friends noticed a new cautiousness in how she handled one-on-one situations with men who exhibited even subtle signs of Brando's entitlement or boundary-pushing behavior. Why he's on the list. Sleazy power play plus zero accountability. Using his status to make unwanted advances, then dismissing her discomfort as oversensitivity when called out. Effectively gaslighting her in the public eye. You won't believe what a Golden Age icon said to her face at an awards ceremony. I'm very grateful to the Academy's board of directors for this happy tribute and to Frank for coming here especially to give it to me." 4. Cary Grant, the elitist who mocked her to her face. Cary Grant defined sophisticated charm for generations of moviegoers, creating an image of debonair perfection that made him one of cinema's most enduring icons. This background made the subsequent events much more startling. Several members of the production team claimed that as Corman's ego seemingly grew with his notoriety, the relationship drastically deteriorated over the show's later seasons. What had been occasional moments of creative tension or normal professional disagreements allegedly evolved into something far more troubling. Verbally exploded on set, openly insulted the crew, and made a direct jab at Carol, according to a stage manager who saw the incident, which was said to be the last time they worked together. Not only was it unprofessional, but it was purposefully degrading, taking place at a major sketch rehearsal in front of the whole cast and production crew. Insiders characterize Corman's outburst as a deliberate attempt to weaken Burnett's authority and minimize her contributions to the show's success, though accounts differ slightly regarding the specifics of the incident. Those who witnessed the incident claim that Corman questioned Burnett's creative choices, rejected her suggestions, and implied that the show's success was due to her leadership rather than her. "He essentially wanted to orchestrate a coup," explained a camera operator who was on site that day. "It felt like he'd been building resentment for years and finally decided to make a power play. But he miscalculated badly. He was unaware of how much everyone else on that set loved Carol. The betrayal was especially painful because it was public, a conscious decision to make Burnett feel as embarrassed as possible by confronting her in front of the team instead of privately voicing her concerns. This public humiliation aspect apparently struck Burnett as showing Corman's actual character and ambitions.